All right. Welcome to Sports Steady Radio. We are live. That's right. We're gonna take some calls too. Don't. I should have went live earlier, but we're gonna go live now because there's a couple things we got to go over in the world of sports. A bunch of stuff has happened. Plus, what the hell? That was unacceptable. Whoever did that is fired. They pick up boy stuff because you're motherfucking fired. Oh, damn, I can't curse. I'm not supposed to curse on here. I'm sorry. My bad, man. Don't kick me off. I didn't mean to curse. You gotta at least go through like the first 2 minutes without cursing. That's what I've been told. But I can't help myself, man. Cursing is good. I love cursing. But you can't curse. You're not supposed to curse. Right? All right. So we got that out the way. Let me pull this up. Refresh that. Phone lines will be open up in a few seconds. We'll open up the phone lines. I just want to make sure when I do open the phone lines, they're going to be open for real. All right. Yeah. What a big blowout in the association last night in the NBA playoffs. Game 3 between the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Thunder were leading the series 2-0 going into Oklahoma or whatever. And 143-101 was the final in Minnesota, as Minnesota is trying to get back in the series. Anthony Edwards and the Wolves strike back with a big victory. Okay? Big victory. The victory was so big, it was like one of the biggest victories. And Anthony Edwards was determined to keep Minnesota spirits high. I mean, they exploded in this game. Every single quarter, they scored at least 34 points or more in every quarter. Just a complete annihilation. And how about the MVP of the league? The guy who just got the MVP award turns up a stinker in a potential series where he could have went up 3-0, and that's Shai Gilgeous, or Gutless Alexander. 14 points for the league's MVP and a terrible performance for the league MVP. What an embarrassment, right? Like, you get crowned the MVP, you're walking around like you're the shit, play 27 minutes, 14 points on 4-13 shooting, and 4 turnovers. Just was not a factor as Minnesota put the annihilate beatdown biblical proportions on the Oklahoma City Thunder, led by Anthony Edwards. Is 30 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists in 29 minutes. Which is more impressive here that Anthony Edwards, in only 29 minutes of action, put up crazy stats. Shot 70% from the floor. He could have played the whole game, probably would have scored 70. At least he would have scored at least 55, 60 if he'd have played the whole game. I mean, 29 minutes, 30 points. I mean, it's just incredible, the performance he put up. Julius Randle also played 29 minutes for the T-Wolves, 24 points as he stepped up. And it's a good night because what happens is with when you're in a blowout scenario like Minnesota had, they were able to rest their guys. I mean, no one played more than 30 minutes. No one played more than 29 minutes, which means that going back for game 4, your top guys are rested, they're ready to go, and of course the same kind of applies to Oklahoma City, right? Because they got blown out, so they guys rested. Chet Holmgren 20 minutes, Shea played 27 minutes, so they're going to be rested coming back for Game 4. But they're a young team anyway; they should be rested regardless. But so Game 4 is going to be very pivotal to me. I always say Game 5s are the most important game of the series, and so we'll see that coming up here. And yeah. Let me see what else do we have. What we have. There's a bunch of drama going on. I don't know if I'm gonna get into the baseball drama, but there's a lot of basketball drama going on. Some NFL drama cooking up, and we know that there's hockey postseason drama kicking up with the Carolina Panthers rout the Hurricanes, and they are now up 3-0 in that series. And the Stanley Cup final, that thing is about over, folks. At least to my estimation. That series between Carolina and Florida, that series might be over. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Let me see what else we got. Trying to find some scores. WNBA action. Oh, what's going on with so there's some drama online between the game that happened between the Fever and the Fever. I believe it was the Fever and the Dream, which was like a couple of nights ago, but it started to spill over into the next day, for some weird reason, because people online are trying to play some type of. Now the Fever played yesterday. Fever played they lost to the New York Liberty, but the other night, I believe they played. 2 nights ago, they played against the Atlanta Dream in Atlanta, and the Fever came out on top in that game. But the drama, Caitlin Clark had one of her worst games against the Dream, but they still found a way to win. But the drama led with Brittany Griner, who had she fouled out 5.7 rebounds in 24 minutes of action. But the drama started there, right? There's a lot of complaining and calls between the Fever team. They're complaining a lot here now. Or do they have a case on why they should be complaining? Maybe they do, right? Maybe they have a point. But for a team that's supposed to be contending, they sure as heck complain a lot. At least in the first couple of games of the season, where people are still trying to adjust, right? And I get it, coaches set the tone when they complaining. Pop did it in his time, Phil Jackson. Many of the best coaches do set that tone with these teams, and they say, hey, call it better. So we might see, I think you're going to see a very favorable whistle towards the moving forward. Like maybe not exactly right away, but I think down the line, the Fever team is going to get favorable calls, because once it starts to heat up and the playoffs, the league's got to make sure that they're not openly favoritizing or making it look like they handing the reins to Clark, because just off the morale of the WNBA, so they gotta allow the Fever to earn their way to prominence, right? They got to earn it. They can't just be handed to them. Even though, yes, they do have the golden goose, it's very important to make Indiana go through this stretch of fighting and grit and hardness, right? It's very important to make them go through that because it'll be better at the end, right? NBA understands this point. You can't just hand it to them. It'd be very easy to favor the Fever all the way, give them all the great calls because they're going to bring the ratings. No, part of the ratings is going to be, can someone make life tough for the Fever, right? Because once they become the villain, right now they're the darlings. But at some point, they will be villains once they start winning. But you do not want them to be villains right away. You want them to be darlings. You want them to earn, be loved by the crowd, before they become villains. Okay? You got to be able to have the mix and match. You got to have a combination of both with them. So you have to be able to let it play out. But they do complain a lot. They whine a big bunch there. And you also gotta remember they haven't won anything with this core group. They gotta win. And I think the proof of the pudding is, hey, we're not gonna hand it to you. We want you to be our golden goose, but we're not gonna hand it to you because we can't just hand it to you. You gotta earn it. Right? Your best player is in her second year. Your other second best player is in year 3. So it's relatively young core. We can't hand it to you yet. We got to make sure it's still balanced out. But once they start going, once they start winning, they're going to be the most hated team in sports. Best of believe they're going to be, if they go on, say if they, maybe not this year, because you still got the Liberty and the Aces and those teams, maybe even the Sparks to a degree. But, and also, let's put it this way, there's also another theory here about why the league is not really open to, may not be as open to quickly hand favoritism to the Indiana Fever, because they may be in a situation where they may want to move Caitlin Clark out of that market and put her in a much bigger market like a New York or LA, for example, to really take off, because she's projected just being in Indiana to rake in $1 billion for the WNBA economically. So could you imagine if she was playing in LA, right? Or New York? I mean, I think that is the goal for the league. They're like, how do we get her to those markets? By making life so hard for her in Indiana that she decides, hey, I want to go to a bigger market. Because she wants to win. She didn't get a chance to win in college, which probably kills her every day. She wants to win, and she wants to win quickly. And I think that there is a behind the scenes hopeful with the league, like, hey, we got to figure out a way to get her to one of those markets as soon as possible. So do not let her be comfortable in Indiana, where she may want to end up leaving at some point. Now you say, well, she's an Iowa girl, she's Iowa and she went to Iowa. She's a small state city girl. She's not going to care about not leaving Indianapolis. I disagree, because she went to Iowa because no one else recruited her. She wanted to go to UConn. So she definitely understands big team. Now, UConn obviously is not a big market in the sense of medium market, but UConn, it was a huge program. And the fact that she wanted to also go there, but she wasn't recruited, tells me that she is someone that would love to play on the big stage. And if the Fever doesn't become that big stage, she will definitely exercise her right to leave at some point. So you have to really decide. The Fever is going to have to make a tough choice in the coming years if they would even consider making a trade with a team like either the Sparks or the Liberty. And look, I know you're gonna say, "Oh, what do you mean? That doesn't make any sense." Well, Dallas traded Luka Doncic. Star players move around all the time now. I think the Luka trade. I wouldn't have brought this up about Clark a year ago. I would have said, "No way, you never do that. You keep her as a fever for life." But after watching Luka get moved, all bets are off. Especially a league like the WNBA that are already struggling financially, and they'll make money this year. Especially if Clark is bringing in $1 billion, they're definitely going to make a profit for the first time ever. Right in time for the new CBA, but they are don't dismiss that possibility that at some point, whether it be a year from now or 2 years from now, that Clark could end up out of Indiana. And I know these are not the best comparisons when it comes to players who were drafted by their franchises and end up leaving, but it is some type of correlation on when you get drafted to teams that are not like big market teams, even when you win in those teams, right? So, for example, we know that now I think Breanna Stewart stayed in Seattle a little longer than, because obviously she was also winning there, which helped her stay there longer, right? I think she won a couple titles with the Storm, if I'm not mistaken, maybe one or two, before finally winning. And she won 2 titles in her first 4 years. So think about that pressure. So Breanna Stewart, so the people that think, oh, Caitlin Clark is the first time you've seen something amazing talent. No, Breanna Stewart, who won 4 titles at UConn, then goes to the W, gets drafted by Seattle, 21 years old, 22 years old. Then by 23, she's winning the WNBA title in year 3. Then she wins it again after coming off sitting out a season with an Achilles injury, right? So she won 2 in Seattle. At 23, torn her Achilles, sat out all of 24, then came back in 2020 and won the title. So she won 2 in Seattle. And she was fucking dominant in fashion. Especially coming off an Achilles. I mean, are you kidding me? When she came back from an Achilles, shot 53% from the floor, 50 from downtown. I mean, I don't think you put up those 2020 playoffs in the WNBA. I don't think there's many women in the history of the sport that has had that kind of impact. Right? I mean, I don't think you can find anybody. I mean, the efficiency that Breanna Stewart had, while also being all defense second team, was a top 5 defensive player of the year candidate, was number 2 in the MVP, was all WNBA first team. I mean, this is what this girl was doing coming out of UConn. 3rd year in the league, she was the league MVP. The year she won the title, all WNBA first team, was 6th in the defensive player of the year. She was 2nd in defensive player of the year as a rookie, and she made all WNBA second team and all defense second team, which is crazy that she would be 2nd in voting, but second team. She should have been first team probably. And the efficiency, like I said, shooting at high percentages. For a person who not only was a post-up player, but also shooting from outside. She's averaging a career 5 threes a game, and she's shooting that at about 36%. Right now, this year she's had a down year from 3 so far, even last year. But prior to that, she was, her MVP season, her first year in New York. I mean, this girl is a legitimate star, and unfortunately, she doesn't get the same accolades, but a generational talent, all in all, right? 6'4" person who with the skill set that she has, but she didn't get the talent, she didn't get the recognition because she started her career off in Seattle. Even though she won 2 titles in Seattle, no one gave a fuck. No one knew. No one watched. So this is why, like players like Brianna, she should have already been moving the needle in the W. I mean, the stats are there, right? Everyone's hyping up Angel Reese, but because Angel Reese is a great rebounder, she's 6'2", 6'3", and she does all this, but there's plenty of 6'3", 6'2", 3 WNBA players that came before her that have been great. I mean, like Brianna's been pretty much a top 5 player in the W since day one. Like every single year, she's been at least a top 5, a top 3. Most of her career is the top 3 MVP candidate. Almost every year. You know, except for early on when she was number 6 and 10. But so you talk about players like that, and then so she finally starts getting recognition when she gets to New York, right? She's been in New York the last 3 years. She finally gets recognized as, you know, she's finally getting attention. And then you got players like, we can go even further back than you got like Elena Delle Donne, another one, who came in as a rookie, was all WNBA second team, was third in MVP voting as a rookie, right? Another 6'5" freakish athlete, right? Who had a shorter career because injuries and stuff like that and other issues. But she, for most of her career, she was a top 5 player in the league for the prime of her career, right? Didn't win though, unfortunately, until later in her career in 2019 when she finally won the title. But this is already after being in the league 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and then you finally win. So you see these scenarios with these players, like no one's gonna want to wait around 5, 6 years. I think Caitlin Clark is definitely not gonna wait in Indiana 5, 6 years, and if she doesn't win, she's definitely gonna hit the road. But all of these players at some point do end up winning, but they win. I mean, how about this, right? We talk about the greatness, like, oh, Caitlin Clark, how great she is, but let's not forget that Diana Taurasi won the WNBA title her first 2 years in basketball. The first 2 years in the league. Her first 2 years in the playoffs. After coming in rookie of the year, WNBA first team as a rookie, top 3 MVP. Her third year, she was averaging 25 points a night, shooting 39%, almost 40% from 3 on 9 attempts, which is unheard of back in 2006. Not even NBA players were taking 9 attempts per game and shooting at that kind of high percentage, right? 9 attempts in 2006. You couldn't even get that from an NBA. Players weren't doing that. I mean, very few got now today. Every NBA player is doing that, but that was unheard of. And she was shooting it at a 40% clip in her third year in the W, right? So, like, and she was dropping 25 a night in the W on 45 and 40 splits. I mean, she was pretty much putting up crazy stats, and that wasn't even the best in the league because she was only second in MVP that year, which is crazy to think about. A person dropping 25 on 45 and 40 splits and don't win the MVP, right? And she didn't have high turnovers either. She had a career best at that time compared to the previous year. She was only averaging 2 turnovers a game. Now we know Clark has high turnovers. Has had high turnover in her early stages in her career, but Taurasi was a fucking monster. Like, if Taurasi came out today, Breanna Stewart and them came out today, the league, you would see that these talented young women, this is not like a brand new phenom. Like Diana Taurasi was, I think she was the change of the league. Like, what you see now, Diana Taurasi was doing all this shit. She was doing this. Like, Taurasi was doing it. And you gotta, like, Taurasi probably gotta be sick to her stomach now. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I was doing this shit 20 years ago. Like, think about this. 20 fucking years ago, Diana Taurasi was doing what pretty much Caitlin Clark is doing today. But no one gave a fuck 20 years ago. That's the problem. No one was watching. No one was watching. But Diana Taurasi literally was doing this. And was more efficient early on. And was more efficient. I mean, it's just crazy the times that we forget about these great talented players that came through the W. Right? And then in 07, she wins back-to-back titles. In 07 and 08. 07 and 09. The 2 years, her first 2 postseason runs. She has 3 now, right? She won in 14. But like these players, and then of course, one of the great of all time greats who came out the gate as a monster at 22 years old, right? We can't forget about this one. Candace Parker, who was the MVP in her rookie year in 08, right? Now, to be fair, back in that, I don't think a lot of talent was in the W. I mean, there weren't a lot altogether, but we're talking about 08, that's the year that, there was talent in the W. There was some talent there. Was it a lot of talent? I don't know. But all in all, rookie Candace Parker comes in 08 and says, I'm going to win not only Rookie of the Year, I'm going to be the league MVP at 22 years old, shooting 52%, 42 from 3, right? She's the 50-40 club as a rookie. And just putting up crazy statistics, like, right? A top 10 player for her whole career every single year and up until her final year. And she wins the title at 16 with the LA Sparks and at 30 years old. So it took her a while to get there. So this is why the point here is that all these stars and these great players, they win in like year 4, 5, and 6, and whether they win on big markets or not, but they're gonna want Caitlin Clark winning in a big market immediately. Could you imagine if she wins the title in New York? Like, yeah, she wins it in Indiana, it'll be nice. It'll be a big deal for the Indiana, the city, but will it be a huge deal for the W? No, it wouldn't, because we've seen players win titles in small markets, great players, and no one gave a fuck. Breanna Stewart won 2 titles in Seattle, not a small market in the sense of like basketball, but it's out in the Pacific Northwest. No one gives a fuck, right? The only market out west that people really care about is LA, California, not Seattle. No one gives a shit what goes on in Seattle, especially when it comes to women's basketball. But if Caitlin Clark was to win her titles in even Chicago, would be not even that big of a deal, but it would be an okay deal, right? Because Chicago won the title a few years back. No one cared, right? You saw the parade. No one showed up. And that was when they had Della Don and Candace at the end of her career, 35, but no one cared. So Clark, they're gonna want Clark to win that title in New York. That's where they're gonna want him to win it at. So I give it 4 years. I give it this year, maybe even next year, especially if they struggle this year. And then say if they don't win or they lose in the first round, I give it another year after that, and then you start hearing rumblings of trade talks. You're gonna start hearing them next season. Not yet, but next season. This season, if they lose, you will hear about a potential breakup between maybe some of the core players, but not Clark. But by next season, because they're going to have to change the team up every single year with Clark until they win in order to keep her happy. So that means if they lose this year, they're going to have to shake it up because the pressure is going to be there. And if they shake it up again, they don't win next year or they struggle, then they're going to start talking, should they trade her to get a bunch of assets before she can walk? That's what you're going to see. That's the scenario that's going to be going on there, right? That's the scenario there. So, I'm telling you right now. Yeah, she's on a 4-year deal. And the club option is going to be in 27, 28. But I think they get to... So you got this, you got 25, 26, which is right now, right? And then you got next year will be the final year unless the club picks it up. Now, the club will be smart, obviously, to pick it up. They'll be smart to pick it up. But I think that she may want to leave and go to a bigger team. After next season. Not this year, but after next. That's what it'll look like. Yep. That's how I look. That's what I see. I mean, it's definitely there. And it's not something to completely ignore if you are monitoring this from afar. It's really not. So, that's what we got on that. So that's some WNBA stuff I just started talking about. I went on a little too long about that, but oh well. But the whole, so let me get to the point with the whole, I didn't even talk about the main issue, the reason why I brought it up. So the whole thing with Brittany Griner. And Brittany Griner, she got it to, she was caught on a bench. She said she was talking about the foul that she received, and someone online, I think it was one of those people online, took the tweet and it blew it up. It made it seem like she was being racist towards Caitlin Clark. So you guys know who Riley Gaines is, right? Riley Gaines is the 5th place swimmer who is now a activist for men, trans athletes competing in female sports. She became like famous and got on the right wing because she speaks out against trans athletes, whatever. And so she tweeted out. She started off the tweet with a on May 23rd, which was a couple nights ago. She puts, Brittany Griner appeared to call Caitlin Clark trash and a effing white girl after fouling out last night, which was the night before. And then she goes, just a reminder, this is who we traded for the Russian merchant of death. Now imagine if Clark had said the inverse. Right? And that got 11 million views. So that kicked off, so it went viral. It kicked off because obviously Riley Gaines is a prominent right wing influencer, so immediately the right wing apparatus jumped on it like bees on honey, right? Or flies on shit, whatever you want to call it. They jumped on it, and it just went viral. 11 million views, and like really quickly, and all the big accounts have quote tweeted it. Now, mind you, these people don't watch the WNBA at all. They only jumped on it because they thought maybe Griner was talking about Caitlin Clark, which is no evidence that that was the case. And actually, it appears that Brittany Griner is talking about the trash call that she received from the referees. And even more evident is she approaches the referees. She's upset with the refs because even on the second night, she's been getting bad calls. And she approached the referee after the previous game against the Dallas Wings. The one that the Dream did win. This was a back-to-back. And Brittany Griner, who yelled at the referees that night as well. So a lot of complaining across the W, not even just the Fever, right? There's a lot of different teams that are just not happy with the referees across the board. But so everyone is taking on this, and they're saying that she called a white woman racist slurs on live TV. Blah blah blah. So everyone is just taking their jabs at this, which makes no sense. It's almost like in all the accounts who don't even watch the WNBA, they just caught a glimpse of like a 3-second that you can't even hear what she's saying. You're just like reading lips and you're assuming that she said that because it's part of how do we infiltrate this space and imprint it with our paranoia of some type of anti-white rhetoric that people think that's going on. It's just so weird. And then you get the comments like, oh, she's a man, and just dumb stuff. It's very juvenile, very, elementary. It just doesn't make any sense. But this is what is happening in this space. And it's almost like word for word. All these accounts are repeating the same exact phrases. And it's like a copy and paste, right? It's like, you write it this way, you write it that way. Look, the same thing. Brittany Griner's a man. Like all this different stuff. And then the some right-wing account says, the WNBA is refusing to investigate Brittany Griner after her racially charged remarks towards Caitlin Clark, which is not even the case at all. So now Brittany Griner is the target. Now remember that she was already the target of these right wing accounts when they traded her for the Merchant of Death, which is, so she's low hanging fruit for these people on social media. Now the reason why this didn't take off past right wing media is because there's nothing there, and anyone who's played basketball or played any type of sports knows that she did not say what they are reporting her to say, and they're trying to, stir up something that's not there. And the very next day, everyone went about their business because there was nothing to talk about. But I just thought it was kind of odd that became a story, at least within the right wing space on social media, but not really anywhere else, because I really believe no one wants these people in the sports world. Like, they don't want them here. And I think people are just like tired and tuned out or fatigued. Like, I know, they talk about different fatigue. I think people are just fatigued from, this these social media bots that come in and they try to stir up shit. I think people are just tired of them and they just tune them out. Like, yeah, whatever. Like, it's just crazy how quickly that type of stuff can spread. But so Griner, like I said, Griner's having an issue with the referees, and she yelled at the refs. She approached the referee after last night's game and told him to be better. So she has an issue with the referees, which was carrying on from the previous game when she fouled out. Now she did not foul out in this game, in last night's game, like at home against the Dallas Wings, but she did foul out 2 nights ago against the Fever. So there you have it with that. Yeah. So we'll keep an eye on that to see what kind of stuff they're gonna stir up with the Brittany Griner going into next week, of course. And speaking of stirring up drama, how about Novak Djokovic? Now, Djokovic won another title, I might add. Djokovic's 38 years old, still going, right? Remember the whole drama that was with him and the whole COVID thing? Seems that he's gotten past that, and he is he's winning again. So good for him, Novak Djokovic. Yeah, not much to talk about there. All right. Let's open the phone line 646-979-0095. 646-979-0095. We got the phone lines open. And got NBA action. Got a couple things on the docket. NBA, got WNBA. Yeah, we got MLB. See any news? We got Caitlin Clark. How about the new team, the Golden State? What do they call? Varkies? Varkies? I don't even know what the hell that name is. Valkyries? Valkyries. I don't know. The Golden State team. They took down the Sparks. They won back-to-back games, so good for them. How about Drew Lloyd looking like I told people that Drew Lloyd is gonna be coming back. She's a stud. And you pair her up with AJ Wilson. I think the Aces are gonna be a legitimate team. A 1-2 punch to not overlook, of course. All right, let me see what we got on the NFL. Was there any NFL news that I need to look at? Still listening before this distraction. Crosby returns from a knee injury. That's good news. Mason Crosby for the Las Vegas Raiders, of course. Hutchinson says he's fully cleared after season injury last year, so Aiden Hutchinson's back for the Detroit Lions. They miss him. Okay, so I saw a article here on the Score that's saying that the 2024 Eagles are a top 5 Super Bowl team ever. That's what they're saying. A what? A what? No. That can't be right. They got to be joking, right? There's no way. There's no way they're serious about this. Like, they making me laugh. Top 5 ever? Top 5 ever? A top 5 ever team? Are you shitting me right now? No. No way. Let me read this. So, the 72 Dolphins, the 85 Bears, the 2000 Baltimore Ravens, the 07 Patriots, and the 2024 Eagles. Wow. I mean, no way. Dude, there's about 3 to 4 Patriot teams that are better than the Eagles. Than this 2024 Eagles team. Are you kidding me? And what are they basing this off? Let me guess. Because of the way they beat the Chiefs. Now you forget that Chiefs team was not great at all. Not great at all. So they said that's the level of reigning Super Bowl champions. That's the level that they belong to, according to Saquon Barkley. Now, this is what Saquon Barkley is saying, who considers the 2024 Eagles one of the greatest teams in NFL history. Now, Saquon. Now, maybe you crashed the golf cart one too many times up at Bedminster, hanging out with Trump, because you're delusional. Now, he says, I firmly believe when you look at our team that we had last year, and I know that we're not looking too far into the past, but our team last year, I think we're a top 5 team of all time, Barkley said. Oh my God, dude. He said, when we look back on it 10 to 15 years and we're all old and we're reflecting on our glorious days, the year that we had last year, people don't give us enough credit. No, you get credit, but you're not a top 5 team all time. Sorry. The Eagles had an inconsistent start to the 2024 season and went 2-2 before their bye week. However, Philly caught fire after its week off, ultimately winning 12 of their last 13 games to finish the campaign 14-3. The team's only loss in that span came to the Washington Commanders in December. In the playoffs, Nick Sirianni's outfit dominant as opponents en route to a 40-24 victory over Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. From how dominant you guys were on offense and how dominant we were on offense and special teams, people don't realize how great of a team that was. Yeah, you're not top 5 all time, dude. You're just not. Not a top 5 team. You want to prove to me that you're a top 5 team all time? Run it back. Philly ranked 7th in points. He said teams really stood no chance. I mean, the league is trash now. But you're ranked 7th in points scored and 2nd in points allowed. So those are decent numbers. Barkley was the biggest difference maker for the Eagles, who suffered a wild card loss months before signing with the team. He led the NFL 2,000 rushing yards in his first year in Philly, finished the campaign with 2,283 yards and 15 touchdowns in scrimmage. Philly's roster also included quarterback and Super Bowl MVP Jalen Hurts, who's surrounded by a top 3 offensive line and one of the best duels wide receivers. Defensively, Vic Fangio, excuse me, helped turn things around by building a strong unit led by Jalen Carter, Zach Bond, Byrne, and defensive backs Judine and Mitchell. I mean, Walkie mentions the 72 Dolphins, 85 Bears, and the 2000 Ravens as the best teams in NFL history, adding that squads from the Patriots and Chiefs dynasties should be in that conversation too. Which Chiefs squad? What squad are you talking about? The 85 Bears and the Ravens are remembered for building 2 of the best defenses of all time. The Dolphins went 14-0 and remain the only team to achieve perfect season. And Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and the Patriots lifted 6 Lombardi trophies, though New England's most dominant team fell short in 2007. Finally, the Chiefs have won 3 Super Bowls with Mahomes, including back-to-back champions in 22 and 23. Yeah, but I'm just not. The Eagles really believe that they are a top. Like I said, there's about 3 Patriot teams that would demolish the Eagles team from last season. Okay. And maybe you can find a team, one of the Kansas City teams, and then obviously the back team. What about those teams? What about those Montana teams? What about, I mean, are you kidding me? I would take the Steelers team over the one that Roethlisberger won with in his early on career with that defense. I would take them over this Eagle team. Is this not even the best Eagle team of all time? To be honest, you could probably find, yeah, they won the Super Bowl. I get it, they finished the job, but no. Shit, the Emmitt Smith Cowboy team would beat that Eagles team. Like, what are we talking about? I guess because they're on a Philly podcast, they had to make it sound good, I guess. Maybe not. All right. Let's go to let me see something real quick. MLB. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll see if someone calls in. I highly doubt it, but we'll take a quick break. We'll be back. Sports Steady Radio. All right, we're back. 646-979-0095. 646-979-0095. Phone lines are open. All sports topics are on the table on Sports Daily Radio. We're here for the next 30 minutes or so. Now, what I wanted to talk about real quick was there's a lot of debate online about, you always got these debates about who's the GOAT, who's the greatest, and who's not, stuff like that, right? And everybody's got their opinion. Especially, like, it seems like the NBA one is, like, the one that's the most, it gets the most hype, right? So, because every other sport, like, in the NFL, I think, it's usually by position. Like, the argument of the greatest player is as a collective. There's really very rare conversations on who's the greatest at each position. Like the conversations are there, the debates are there, but it's not. It all depends on who you talk to, right? Like, talk to young people, they're gonna tell you, with different names, and older people. But in the NFL, it's always broken down to position players. So I think it's very well renowned that Tom Brady is the greatest of all time. It's really not a debate. A few years back, maybe 10 years ago, there was some type of a kind of debate where people said it was Montana still, or Peyton Manning was creeping up there, and then Brady kind of just took off and dominated into his late 30s and 40s, and then it kind of just said, okay, I think it's pretty clear that Tom Brady might not be just the best quarterback of all time, but then they started having debates of, is he the greatest football player ever? Now that, that's a different conversation, but kind of hard to have those debates. But in the NBA, is roughly really about who's the greatest, and it's Michael Jordan and everyone else, right? And sometimes Kareem is thrown in there. There was a good Kareem versus Michael comparison going on for a while when it came to people pulling up like these different memes and charts, and then LeBron comes in and breaks Kareem's record. And now I think the whole Kareem versus Mike thing was more about trying to open the lane for LeBron, because they always try to open that lane for LeBron. And in order to do that, they also use Kobe Bryant, right? So Kobe's recently, not recently, but like, I think he died a while ago, but while he was playing, now, maybe there was some hard niche Kobe fans out there that were like, yeah, Kobe's the greatest, right? I'm pretty sure you'll find anybody that's like in LA, diehard Laker fans would probably say Kobe was the greatest. But was that really a widespread thing? No, it wasn't. It only really became that after he passed away, and when they needed to use him in order to get LeBron into the conversation. Because while LeBron was always positioning himself to be in the conversation, he fell off the tracks, fell off the trajectory of being the GOAT when he departed to Miami and had a flop or a stinker in the 2011 NBA Finals. Kind of took him out of the GOAT conversation for a bit. But he got back in it because, he won later on after that, after he left and went back to Cleveland, and then that helped him get back in the convo. But what the Kobe scenario does, because some people say, well, now LeBron didn't hold up his end of the deal, of course, because he come to LA and only won a Mickey Mouse bubble. But what it was supposed to have happened was LeBron was supposed to come to LA and lead the Lakers to 2-3 titles and dominate and be the great hope. And then as the torch is being passed to him, when people are already saying, oh, Kobe's close to Mike. So Kobe's close to Mike and LeBron just passed Kobe, then that means that LeBron is right there with Michael, right? That was supposed to be the path, but the path interrupted because LeBron never delivers on the path. But many people out there, including myself, have an issue with LeBron's path. And it's a most fraudulent path to GOAT status in the history of sports, right? Like, the most fraudulent path to GOAT status. Because when did he pass Larry Legend Bird? He has not. He still has not passed Larry Bird. Yeah, he might have passed him in games played. I believe he's played almost twice as many games as Larry Bird. But has he really passed Larry Bird when it comes to on-court greatness? Right? Like, is Larry Bird is becoming the most underrated player in league history. Not because of Larry Bird himself, because when Larry walked away from the game, he was considered one of the greatest ever. He was considered the greatest, one of the greatest, the pioneer that kicked off this NBA explosion. Bird magic, right? And then Michael took the rest of the way and really got the league off the ground to different heights. But Bird and Magic got off the ground. But while we remember Magic Johnson, in many conversations, Magic is considered the greatest point guard ever. Michael Jordan is considered the greatest of all time. What about Larry Bird? Larry Bird is almost an afterthought in this scenario. Considering that the fact that he played for the Boston Celtics and is an all-time great and won in the greatest ever, in the toughest era in league history, beat Michael Jordan a bunch of times. Now, it was early Michael, but it still beat him, right? He's almost like the Isaiah Thomas of his talk about, because Isaiah is another one who almost gets overlooked when you talk about point guards, because we know Stockton has the all-time assists and steals. We know Magic is flashy. We talk about Oscar Robertson, but we almost forget about Isaiah to a degree. And these are two of the best players to play in arguably the greatest era in league history. So when you talk about all-time NBA greats, this is why it's very important when you have a GOAT conversation, you must start with the eras. Because if you start with the eras, it's very hard to overlook Larry Bird and Isaiah Thomas and those other great players that played in that realm, that were played in that time. It's very hard to overlook that. But if you don't go by eras and you just start flopping up names, looking at who had the most points, like when did points become the only stat that determined who was great and who was not? That's that new generation of athletes and fans who say, well, I scored 30,000 points, so that means I'm one of the best ever. Like, no, you're not. You're not one of the best ever because you scored a lot of points. I mean, guys today are taking 9, 10, 11, 12 threes a night on the high volume shooters, and the low end guys are at least 5 or 6 a night. So let's just say you're shooting it at, on average, 35 to 40%, right? So you got to pretty much make 1 or 2 a game. So let's say you make 2 a game. That's 6 points right there. Right? And if you make about with no defense in the league, you score about 4 points a quarter, right? What's that? That's already 20 points. That's 22 points, matter of fact, because you got 16 plus 6, 22 points. So the average player, a decent player in today's NBA that would be considered really good or average, and not a guy who is the number one option or even a number two option in many cases, could still average 20 points a game just by showing up and being open. Right? Where if you score 20 points a game in a different era, you were considered above average, almost potentially all-star level. And not because the rest of the league was bad, it was because it was so hard. The defense was there. The defense was just a different animal. So you had to be able to score. There was no luxury of, I take our best defender and we focus on this one guy so everyone else is going to be open. Because most teams in the league maybe don't even have one good defender. Right? Like back then, even guys who weren't great defenders were still good enough because of the physicality that they were allowed to use. So you had about 2-3 guys that can give you different looks. Even the star players were good defenders back then, unlike today where your best defender may not be your number one option or even your number two option or even your number three option. Your best defender might be the guy coming off the bench as the sixth man. But back then, the best defenders were also your best offensive players, and they could do both, right? You saw what Michael did in '88. Isaiah was another one with that defensive Detroit team. Both sides of the ball. Joe Dumars, right? I mean, even Larry Bird was all NBA third team a bunch of times, all defense a couple times. But you wouldn't have thought it because, look at Larry, he looks slow and he's white and unathletic. No, Larry Bird was that guy. But today people laugh when they try to say, LeBron's better. He was better defensively. I'm not so sure about that. Yeah, he may look like he's better because he jumps out the gym and does all this crazy steroids and Labalco and all that. But Bird played both sides of the ball every minute, every inch. Pound for pound, Larry Bird was better, inch for inch, better than LeBron James on every metric. Every metric. And is not even really close. But yeah, LeBron's flashy and he looks the part, right? It's almost like Bird is Tom Brady in the sense of you look at him, you don't think, it don't look great. And then you got LeBron, who is whoever your most physically fit looking quarterback at that time. That would be LeBron. But Bird was a different beast. And Bird was great. Bird nearly averaged a career triple-double for his career. Was a great rebounder. Was a great scorer. Great passer. Was a really good help defender. And he played every inch of the court. He threw his body around, which probably slowed him down and prevented him from playing another good 3-4 years after with the back issues. But he gave you every inch. Like I would take Larry Bird's 800 or so games over LeBron's 1,500 games. Okay? That's just a fact. Like, if you're building a team, Larry Bird played 897 NBA games. Right? Give me that. Give me those games. Okay? Give me those games over LeBron's 1,562 games. All right? And despite all that, yeah, like I said, LeBron's got all the accolades, the All NBAs, the All-Star appearances, and all that stuff. Okay. But the numbers that really count: 6-time All Defense, 4-time Finals MVP, 4-time NBA champ. In 21 years. In 21. So 21 times you were 20 times you were all NBA. But you managed to only come out with 4 NBA titles. That's a quarter of your career where you won. Now, that's impressive. You win an NBA title 25% of your career. Impressive. But Larry fucking Bird, 3 titles in 12 years. What's those numbers look like? Much higher percentage. Likely chance of Larry Bird. LeBron's played nearly double the games. And Larry has 3-time all defense. LeBron has 6. Right? So 6 for LeBron? Yeah. So LeBron has 3 more all defenses, which you can only win once a year. So at best, LeBron's played almost way more games to only get 3 more all defensive teams. Right? 1 more title than Bird. And he's played double the games. Double. Yeah, he has double the all NBAs, but he's played double the years. I mean, come on. Bird 3 MVPs. LeBron 4 MVPs. You get what I'm saying? 2 Finals MVPs for Bird. LeBron's got 4 Finals MVPs. So he's only gotten 2 more. Then they came up with all these new awards, right? After the fact, which don't count. None of that stuff counts. He won the assist title. Okay, that's impressive. He won 1 scoring title. Okay. Impressive. But Larry's career, in my estimation, is a better career. Give me Larry Bird's career. Give me Larry Bird's career. I mean, I take 80s Larry Bird over anything that LeBron's putting together today. Give me 80s Bird over anything LeBron has. Because Larry Bird was one of the best. He was one of the 2 to 3 best players in basketball throughout the whole stretch of the 80s, which is arguably one of the greatest eras in NBA history. You could make that case that the 80s, the NBA 80s, and people will tell, oh, everybody was on coke, blah, blah, blah. Are you kidding me? Like that's your dig? Everybody was on coke? Clown show. Let's talk about the 80s real quick, guys. Larry Bird, 23 years old, played all 82 games. Right? He was the Rookie of the Year, All NBA First Team, Top 5 MVP, Top 4. 79-80. He was Top 4 MVP. He was All NBA First Team as a Rook. The same first team with Julius Erving, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he had the same. His numbers were right there with those guys. George Gervin, the Iceman, who was putting up 33 a night. Paul Westphal, right? And this was a second. Moses Malone was second team, average of 26 and 15 as a second team All NBA. At big, and the only reason why he's second team because Kareem is first team, right? But this is Larry Bird, who wins Rookie of the Year. Now, Larry's 3 years older than Magic, right? So, Bird is much more experienced than Magic. Bird shot 40% from three as a rookie. You get what I'm saying? Like, this is Larry Bird coming into the league averaging a double-double. Double-double, which he's putting up 21, 10, and 5 as a rook. As a freaking rook. Okay? This is what we're talking about here. Bird was fourth in MVP voting behind George Gervin, the Iceman, Julius Randle, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Those are the three best. Those are the three players that were ahead of Bird. 23-year-old Larry Bird sitting at the fourth spot, slightly ahead of his teammate Tiny Archibald. Right? Who's already at 31 at this point. Dennis Johnson in Seattle. Those guys all were in the top MVP voting. So let's go to the following season. So this is the 79-80 season. This is the end of the 70s. Starting of the new era, the 80s, where you had some of the greatest talent to ever surface the game of basketball. So 1980, Larry Bird finished his second in MVP voting, his second season. But Julius Erving, who's also a small forward, he's the number one. He's the MVP of the league. But it's a neck-to-neck race. I mean, in some you can make a case that Larry Bird probably could have won it, but of course, Julius Erving that year, the 76ers were a 62-win team. And they also lost to Boston in the 7-game series in 1980-81. Right? So Bird's Celtics beats the MVP, knocks off the MVP in the playoffs, and wins the NBA title. Right? This is what Larry Bird is doing at 24 years old. When you talk about the greatest forward of ever, in the heart of the greatest era in league history, while LeBron in his second season, what's LeBron doing in year two? Is he struggling to make the playoffs in Cleveland? Yeah, probably. But Larry Bird leading the way. And don't give me that, he had Kevin McHale. No, Kevin McHale was 23, but Kevin McHale wasn't that guy yet. Kevin McHale was averaging like 9 points a game. He wasn't really putting up the stats. All right, this is early on. This is young Kevin McHale. He wasn't there yet. Bird is carrying this load. Okay? He's doing what the do is doing. And that Philly team was no slouch, right? They had Darryl Dawkins, Andrew Toney, Julius Erving, Bobby Jones. I mean, that team was pretty deep. Lionel Hollins was solid, and they weren't old either. They were some young. They were all in their 20s. I think Julius Erving was the oldest one at 30 years old. Yeah, Mo Cheeks. And the Celtics, they were a little bit older by not much. No, actually, overall, they were younger, but the core guys for Boston were slightly a little bit older, but not by much. They were all a young team. So Bird takes out the MVP, goes on to win the finals in his second season, knocks off Julius Irvin. So this is what Bird has done in his career, beating all of these great players in the 80s, in the era of the greatest era in league history. And this is year 2 for Magic. And then let's not forget about the fact that Bird beat the Houston Rockets in the finals. And who's on that Houston Rocket team? Wait. Let's go to this series. Was that another great player? Oh, yeah. Moses Malone. Another All NBA top MVP candidate. Moses Malone. Knocked them out of the playoffs for the NBA title. So, Larry Bird already taking out all-time greats in his early career in the NBA. Takes out the MVP. Takes out another MVP candidate, a top guy, all NBA guy. Takes down now Cedric Maxwell was the finals MVP in that series, but Bird put work in. Bird averaged 15, 15, and 7. Okay? So it's not like Bird was a slouch, but yes, Cedric Maxwell did step up big in Game 5. Right? He stepped up huge in Game 5, as well as Game 6, I believe. But Bird was great in Game 6 in the closeout. But of course, Bird being in his second year, they're going to give it to Maxwell. And maybe that was the right call. But Bird very well could have gotten MVP in that series. Maybe he got robbed. But this is what Larry Bird is doing. This is the impact on Larry Bird in his first years in the league, playing in the toughest era. So let's move on, shall we, to 81-82. Oh, look at that. The guy that Larry Bird knocks off in the playoffs is the league MVP, Moses Malone. How about that? Bird is number 2. But remember, Bird already beat Malone. He's already knocked him out of the playoffs in the finals for the chip. He's Julius Irvin, the number 3 MVP. He knocked them out of the postseason already. In the conference finals. Now, of course, at this time, Bird definitely got some help now. His team is coming together, but he's already won. Right? Robert Parrish was number 4 MVP voting. Parrish was pretty damn good. So the Celtics are definitely building up to dominate the 80s. But, right? But look at these all NBA guys. Look at the talent on this most valuable players list. Moses Malone, number 1, who Bird beat the previous year. Larry Bird, number 2. Now, this is year 3 for Bird. So I'm rounding off these names in Bird's 3rd season in the NBA. Julius Irvin, I don't know why I keep saying Randall, who he already beat as a rookie in the playoffs. Knocked him out of the conference finals 2 years prior. All-time great, number 3. And Irvin is one amongst the best players in the league from the moment Bird was in the league. So Bird is beating all these great players. Number 4, Robert Parrish. Number 5, Gus Williams. Julius Irvin, the Iceman. Sidney Moncrief. Magic Johnson. Jack Sigma. Kareem. Right? We go down the list. Alex English. Bernard King. Adrian Dantley, one of the great scorers. He's averaged 30 a night, and he finished 15th in MVP voting. 26 years old for the Utah Jazz. Michael Cooper. Isaiah Thomas. 20 years old, Isaiah Thomas. This is probably his rookie year. Finished 17th in MVP voting. Isaiah Thomas. Young Isaiah. Right? So the greatness of this is Larry Bird's year, doing what Larry Bird does. Now, what did they Celtics do? They come back again and they win another 60 plus games. So the dominance is there. You talking about the dominance of the 80s Celtics. Forget about Showtime. Lakers, they need to do a documentary on the 80s Celtics. But the Celtics, they lost to Philly, right? Julius Irvin and the Philadelphia get a little bit of revenge, right? After what the Celtics did to them a couple years back in Game 7. Philly put the whooping on the Boston Celtics. And burdened them, to get eliminated. Probably not happy about that, of course. And why would they be? 25 years old, Larry Bird, but we did see some promising action from the Kevin McHale, who looks like he's ready to step up and be a nice 1-2 punch. Now, the Lakers won the title that year, right? But this is what you see. Let's go to the next year, 82-83. Moses Malone wins another MVP, right? And now he's a Philadelphia 76er. This is right after the Sixers knock off the Celtics. They said, shit, we need reinforcements. Even though we already beat Boston, but Boston's a legitimate team. So you got a 27-year-old Moses Malone teaming up with Julius Irvin, who's 32 years old, to form a nice 1-2 punch in Philly. So now how does Bird and them deal with that? Now, Bird already beat Moses Malone in the finals. So Bird already beat the MVP. How many MVPs does Larry Bird need to beat in his early career? Okay? Something that LeBron, Michael, and many others have not done. Had not done. So Bird, again, second in MVP. He just can't get over the hump to win the damn award. Magic is now creeping up. He's number 2-3 on MVP rankings this year. Now, Irvin is still top 5 player in the league. So, essentially, Philly has 2 top 5 MVP candidates. 2 legitimate studs. But the list of great players in the league is starting to grow. Now, what happens in this year? The Celtics lose to Sidney Moncrief in the second round. Disappointment. And something got to give. But the Sixers won the title. So the Philadelphia 76ers win the NBA title. Moses Malone got one off the hump. Right? Milwaukee sweeps Boston in 83. The same Milwaukee team that's going to sweep Chicago the next year. Remember the team that, Jordan got swept in the playoffs in the best of 5, right? They bring that up. But that Milwaukee team swept Boston the previous season on their way to nowhere, but they were a good Milwaukee team. So now you got Milwaukee, Boston, Philadelphia in the Eastern Conference, or pretty much the cream of the crop, with Philly winning a couple of titles. And then you're building up something with Detroit, potentially. But you're looking at this with and remember Milwaukee tools up because they go out and they get Terry Cummings at some point. They add Terry Cummings later on. Now Mikal didn't do much in this series. He kind of didn't do shit. He kind of disappeared. He started only one game. Maybe he was hurt. Who knows? So Sixers win another title. Now, the early 80s was kind of Philadelphia's thing. They were back and forth with the Celtics. Celtics did get one on them, but Next, 83-84, Larry Bird MVP. Right? This was Bird's time. This was it. Larry said, okay, I'm here. Put a lot of great players on that list. Bernard King was right there. Magic, Kareem, Isaiah now in the top 5. Julius Erving still a top player. But what happened to Moses Malone? Moses dropped all the way from MVP to 10th. Did he get hurt? Did he get injured? What happened? Who knows? But what we do know is Larry Bird and the Celtics win the NBA title. Not only did they win the NBA title, they beat up. They beat Larry Bird beats Bernard King. Right? Yes, he does. He beats Bernard King and Bill Cartwright and those guys in New York. Another great player. Larry takes out. He beats Milwaukee, gets revenge after Milwaukee swept them the year before. They get them again and they beat them. Celtics running with Dennis Johnson now. Cedric Maxwell. Their Celtics team is deep. Danny Ainge. They putting together something special here in Boston. So Terry Cummings doesn't show up yet, but he will soon. So Boston wins the title. Bird gets revenge. He's beat all these great players and great teams in the 80s. Just keeps beating them. Right? They got Casey Jones now as a coach, 62 wins after getting rid of Bill Finch. And he beats the Lakers. Another great play. I mean, this is early Larry Bird taking out some of the greatest players in league history in the postseason and in the title games. Julius Erving, Moses Malone, Moncrief, Sidney Moncrief. He beat Erving a couple times. Now he's beat Magic. Right? He's beat Magic and Kareem and Worthy. And he's only 27 years old. So this is what Larry Bird was doing in the epic peak of his career early on in Boston. Whether it be in the postseason or in the finals. So all Bird was doing was when he was just taking out the top guys. He didn't say, oh, let me go get a banana boat. Let me go team up with Moses and let me go to Philly and team up with Julius so we can beat such and such. No. He was building in Boston. Something LeBron would not do. In the toughest era, in the toughest decade, arguably in league history. Now, let's go to 84-85. Now, this is the Michael year. The welcome to the NBA for Michael Jordan. Larry Bird, MVP again. MVP. The Bucks go out and get some reinforcements. After getting beat by Boston the year before, they go out and get Terry Cummings, 23 years old. So now Milwaukee has a kind of a big three, maybe you can call it, or not. But they have a nice little threesome going. Moses Malone bounces back as the third in MVP voting. You still got Magic, number 2. You got Kareem at number 4. Michael Jordan, the rookie, 6 in MVP voting, 21 years old. Then you got Bernard King. You got Sidney Moncrief. So the Bucks had 2 players in the top 8 MVP. Lakers had 2 guys in the top 4 of the MVP. Philly had one. They had Moses at number 3. I think that at this point, Julius Erving was pretty much done. He was pretty much, no, he was still putting up 20 a night, 25 and 3, but on 49% shooting. But it was pretty clear that the team was shifting over to Andrew Toney and and Moses Malone was the two best players. Then you had the Nuggets had two guys, Calvin Nat and Alex English, in the top 12. Hakeem Olajuwon, the rookie, was also in the top. I mean, the talent was there, folks. Milwaukee had three players in the top 15 MVP voting. Then you had Dominique for the Hawks, who was also a stud. Clyde Drexler. So let's see what happens here. So Boston, they don't win the title. They lose to the Lakers. The Lakers get revenge on Boston. But they win another 63 wins. KC Jones doing his thing, of course. But in the process of knocking off some more great players, Larry Bird in the first round took out World B. Free, who was a legitimate player in this league. He didn't have much help, but he took him out. World B. Free was a 26-point per game scorer. Second round, he took out Isaiah Thomas, another great player. Took out Isaiah Thomas, who was averaging 26 and 11. So Larry Bird takes out the Pistons. He's taking out Milwaukee. He's taking out the Lakers. He's taking out all these teams every year. He took out Philly in 5. Moses Malone. Again, how many times has he beaten Moses Malone, whether it be in Philly or Houston? He's had Moses' number, right? He's had Julius Erving's number. All-time greats. Okay? He's taking them out. Then he takes out, of course, then he loses to the Lakers in the finals. Now, it is what it is. Lakers were a different beast. Magic Johnson, James Worthy, and fucking Kareem were a threesome that was just unfreaking stoppable. You just couldn't do nothing with that. Unfortunately, you couldn't do shit with that. So, it is what it is. But Larry Bird was the MVP. And he took out the number 3, the number 5 in the playoffs. 85-86, Bird back on top, MVP again. Another MVP for Larry Bird. He's not even 30 years old yet, and he's already taken out all of these great players. He's the NBA champ. 67 wins. He knocks off Michael Jordan in the first round. Second round, he takes out Dominique Wilkins, 26-year-old Dominique. Third round, he takes out Milwaukee. The threesome in Cummings, Presley, and Moncrief out. All homered, right? Took them all out. Then he takes out the Houston Rockets. Another great player. Hakeem Olajuwon out of the playoffs. So, this is what Larry Bird is. Every year that Larry Bird was in the league up until his 30th birthday, he was taking out all-time greats in the postseason while winning NBA titles, while winning MVPs, while being amongst the best, taking out the best players in basketball. Right? This is what Larry Bird was doing. And that year, he was the MVP. He took out the number 2. Right? He took out the number 2 in the MVP voting. He took out the number 4 in the finals in the MVP. Right? This is what Larry Bird is doing. He took out the number 7 in MVP. He took out the number 10. No, not number 10, excuse me. Number 7, the 11 in MVP. This is what he's doing. Larry freaking Bird. Knocking them all out. Let's go to 86-87. Now, 86-87, Bird finishes third in MVP voting, trailing only Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson, who is the league MVP that year. Who was the MVP that year? Now, Kevin McHale was number 4. So, McHale right on him. So, him and McHale is a formidable 1-2 combination that's just deadly. Now, Jordan was number 2 despite the fact that he didn't even play a lot of games, which I think was kind of crazy. So, technically, Bird probably should have been number 2 because I think Michael that year only played 17 games. So, the fact that he even got that many MVP votes is kind of fucking ridiculous. But, Bird had to split with McHale. So that's how that went. But what did Boston do that year? They lost in the finals to the Lakers. The Lakers got them back. But in the process, they took out the Bulls again. They took out Michael. They took Michael out. That's what they did. They said, Michael, you're out of here. So Bird beats Michael in the playoffs again. The greatest of all time. Will be deemed the greatest of all time years later. Bird also took out Milwaukee, the threesome in Milwaukee, including Jack Sigma. Look at that Milwaukee. That Milwaukee team had 5 guys averaging almost 6 guys averaging 15 plus. Celtics took them all out. Took them all out. Good night. Bird said, good night. Sleep tight. And those guys scored a lot of points. You had to score a lot of points to beat that Milwaukee team. Because they were putting up 140, 125. They were not fucking around, that Milwaukee team. One of the better teams in that time. Too bad they couldn't win. Oh, how about this? Bird beats Isaiah again. He beats the Pistons again. Not only did he beat the Pistons again, he beat Isaiah, he beat Adrian Dantley. Another great player, all-time great. He beat Joe Dumas and a Hall of Famer. How many Hall of Famers did Larry Bird beat up in the 80s? Okay? He's just beating them all. He loses to Magic, okay. He lost to them again. But let's go to 87-88. Michael's the MVP. Jordan comes back after playing, 17 games or whatever. Wins the MVP. 24 years old. I think he also won Defensive Player of the Year too that year. He was unbelievable. I mean, Bird was great too. Bird was averaging almost 30 a night. 9 rebounds, 6 assists. But Michael, 35 a night. You couldn't beat that. On 53% shooting, I mean, but Bird was unbelievable. Bird easily could have been the MVP. Actually, that was a pretty tight MVP race, at least from an overall points, right? I think Jordan had 665. Bird had 527. Magic was right there at number 3, 508 points total. And Bird was a 50-40-90 that year. Think about it. You average 30 points a game on 50-40-90 and you don't win the MVP. You almost guaranteed to win that in today's NBA. And not only did he average 30 points, he was at 9 rebounds and 6 assists and a steal and a half. And he still couldn't get it because Michael was just that unbelievable. Crazy. Charles Barkley, who was 4th in that year MVP voting, he averaged 28 and 12 on 58% shooting. Think about it. You're going to average 28 and 12 on 58% shooting, and you're going to come in fourth in the MVP. That's just how much talent the 80s had. Clyde Drexler, fifth in MVP voting, averaged 27 a game on 50% shooting. Dominique was sixth in MVP, averaged 30 a night. Hakeem was seventh, 22 and 12. Karl Malone averaged 28 and 12, a steal and a half on 52% shooting, and he finished eighth in MVP voting. Fat Lever averaged 19, 8, and 8. He was ninth. John Stockton averaged 14 assists a game, 15 points, 14 assists on 57% shooting, 35 from 3. He was 10th in MVP. The list goes on and on. I mean, the great scorers, Mark Aguirre, 25 points a night. He was at the bottom of the MVP race. I mean, the talent was just disgusting. Disgusting across the league. Mark Jackson was the league rookie of the year, and he averaged 11 assists a game, 2.5 steals as a rookie. Played all 82 games, 39 minutes a night. Mark Jackson, 14 and 11 with 5 rebounds a game as a rookie. Amongst the talent in the NBA in the 80s. Sick. But Larry Bird took out he took out the Knicks, right? He took out the Knicks, Patrick Ewing Knicks, a really good Knick team. Patrick, Mark Jackson, Johnny Newman, Gerald Wilkins, took them out. Right? This was what Bird was doing, because this is about Bird. Then he took out Dominique. Then he lost to Isaiah. So Isaiah and them finally beat Bird. But, Bird's taking out more all-time greats in the playoffs than probably anybody during that time. And poor Dominique. Dominique couldn't get anywhere because he kept running into either Larry Bird or then later Michael Jordan, right? It was Larry first, though, in the Eastern Conference. How many great teams, think about this. Larry Bird, if Larry Bird would have lost those matchups, the shift of history has changed. If, let's just say, Bird loses in the finals to Eastern Conference Finals that year to Julius Erving in that early era in his rookie, right? Or if he loses to Houston, the Rockets, instead of beating Moses Malone, he beat twice Moses Malone in the finals. Imagine if Moses Malone get those 2 titles instead of Bird. On top of Moses Malone, already all-time greatness, he's moved up on the all-time list. If Erving wins titles, Julius Erving, he moves up. Now, Erving did get the best of Bird a couple times in the playoffs, but Bird also got him a bunch of times. Now, let's go to 88-89. Magic Johnson, MVP. Michael 2, Karl Malone 3, Patrick 4. Now, right here, this is where Larry Bird starts to, things not looking the same for Larry anymore. That time is coming. The team is getting a little long in the tooth. You got the young Thundercats coming up, right? You got the Kevin Johnsons and the Mark Price. All these young Thundercats, Chris Mullin out at St. John's. These guys, still a really nice chunk of talent across the NBA. Brad Daughtry, 23 years old, stud. Robert Parrish, he's still putting up big numbers, but not much coming from the from Larry Bird, who only played 6 games that year, right? Only 6 games for Bird. So Celtics are going on without Larry, 42 wins and 89. They lose in the first round to the Pistons. So Isaiah again gets another one up on Bird, but do we count that because Larry Bird didn't really play? He was kind of like, he didn't play at all. It was pretty much Reggie Lewis, McHale running that show, and Bird was out. So, yeah, Isaiah, it's your win, but you didn't beat Bird. Joe Dumars was the Finals MVP, and in 89, Joe Dumars. So there you have it. So 89-90 now. Larry Bird, he's back. He's back. But he ain't back. He got a bad back. But he ain't back. So 89-90, they lose in the first round to the Knicks. So they just getting beat up now. This is probably towards the end of the good old Celtics days that you know. It's kind of the end here, or coming to the end for the Celtics. At least the winning ways, but this is where Bird's back is starting to mess with him, and yada yada yada. You know the Jeff losing to the Knicks, pathetic. Patrick Ewing and the Knicks was just too much for Boston. Too much to handle for Boston. Too much for Boston to handle. I tell you. Too much. It was too much for Boston for them to handle. The hell was that? Yeah. So the 80s, like I said, was probably one of the greatest stretches. I think was the best stretch. One of the best stretches in NBA history. And Larry Bird was at his peak. That was peak NBA basketball. So the point is that when you talk about NBA eras and when you try to discuss and try to tell me who's the greatest of all time, you cannot start discussing who's the greatest without talking about the eras. And in my estimation, and in my opinion, the 80s, the NBA 80s, that stretch, the greatest stretch in league history to me was probably somewhere between when Bird and Magic arrived to when Michael retired the first time. Right? Even if you want to go into like, not the first time, but Jordan's second, the final retirement, like the 98, 99 after that era. So from 79 to 99 was probably the best stretch in NBA history. Like the best eras. And, you can pick and choose, some people like the 70s. 70s were really good. I get that. But if, I would take it from, because the 70s were the mid set, like, so I guess you can go from 74 maybe, right? Because 70, like I said, the 70s were legit. There was some greatness there, right? You talk about Moses Malone in the mid 70s. George Gervin was the premier scorer throughout that time. Kareem, of course, was a beast. As great as Kareem was, though, and this is where why Kareem, when people say why isn't Kareem considered the greatest ever, is probably because Kareem was not the best player during many stretches of of the of his era, of his time, right? Like, Kareem was, so we go all the way back. So I think there is a strong case for Kareem to be probably amongst the top three all time, at least definitely in the top five, is definitely a strong case for him because the 70s was also a great era as well, right? So if you go back to, all right, let's look at this for a second. So the end of the 60s going into the 70s. So Kareem played he came in 60. He so let's go all the way back. Um Bill Russell's final year was what, like, it was like final year was like 68, 69, where he was like really amongst the best at 34 years old. And then you go into that 69, 70. This is where, you know, you got Kareem at 22 years old was number 3 in MVP voting, right? He was behind Jerry West and Willis Reed. And Walt Frazier was there, top Connie Hawkins, such and such. 70, 71, Kareem was the MVP, right? He was the MVP that year. MVP, NBA champion. Boom, right? Took over. Knocked off the Warriors in the first round, beat the Lakers in the second round, and the Laker team led by Wilt Chamberlain. So Kareem immediately established himself in the NBA as a 22-year-old, knocking off Wilt Chamberlain and the Lakers. Impressive stuff. So him and Oscar, doing their thing. Oscar was 9 years older, so there was a gap there. They win the NBA championship, 1971. Impressive, 66 win team. So yeah, so Kareem definitely has a stake here because the 70s was a damn pretty good era of basketball too. Not, I don't think it was as great as the 80s in my opinion, but the 70s probably would be the number 2 era, unless you want to consider that 80s to 90s range. Maybe the 70s is there, maybe not. I mean, I guess 70s would be number 2 or 3 in a tie with that 90s era. But if you put 70s number 2, then Kareem definitely has made his stake in that regard. So then you go, so then you go, obviously, 72, 73, Kareem is number 2 MVP, one of the second best players in the league, and he loses in the first round. No, he loses in the semifinals, to Golden State. Right? And so that's what happens there. Then you go Kareem again, MVP in 73, 74. Loses again in the finals. This time he loses to the Celtics. Loses to the Boston Celtics. And John Havlicek and JoJo White and those guys beat Kareem in the finals. Beat Kareem and Oscar. And so in the 70s, Kareem was probably, I would say, there were just too many guys that Bob McAdoo was the MVP in 74, 75, averaging 35 and 14. I mean, where's Kareem at here? Kareem putting up big numbers, but it wasn't the MVP. I mean, I don't know. They put up some video game numbers in the '70s, right? Like I say this was probably this was probably still the ABA years, right? So the official merger was like 74, 75 was probably the final year here with this, and then it goes to like 75, 76. Um, Now Kareem's a Laker. So, you know, he's a Laker, but the Lakers finished 40 and 42. He's not really dominating anymore. He's great, but he's not like, the Lakers didn't win. How do you win 42 games? Doesn't make any sense. But and then 76. So 76, 77 was officially the NBA's, I guess, years. Right? That was like the official. So Kareem is like I said, Kareem definitely has a stake in the GOAT conversation. But I believe that the most of that talent imported right when right when Bird and Magic arrived. I think that's when it really kicked off. So that's why, to me, Kareem won't be the GOAT. Because yes, he dominated his era. He dominated during his time. He was great. But a lot of that talent in the league imported itself probably after going into the late 70s to the early 80s. That was really when it kind of popped off. So, like, it really kicked off. And at that point, Kareem was not the best in the league. He was still great. He was still one of the better players, but he wasn't the best player at that point. He was just maybe a top 5 guy, top 3 here and there. And, that's pretty much how it was. So that's why, by then, you had guys like Moses Malone coming in with the Houston Rockets, young Moses Malone. You had George Gervin. These guys were all now in the 79-80. Yes, Kareem came back and became the MVP, but then I think he got hurt, I believe, and then Magic ends up winning, helping to win. So yeah, I mean, and you also got to consider that during the other stretches where Kareem continued to dominate and look good, he's always played with another either a great player like an Oscar Robertson and then with Magic Johnson, where Michael played with Pippen at the peak of his career, but he had to wait for Scottie Pippen to develop. It wasn't like Pippen came pre-ready. He's gotten a pre-ready Magic. He got it, right? He got a pre-ready Oscar Robertson. So I think a lot of these, you have to take all that into consideration when you talk about, why Kareem is probably not number one on the GOAT list. But I think Kareem is obviously in the top 5, maybe even top 3 discussion. But I still would put Larry Bird above Kareem because Bird was in the thick of in my estimation, the best talent pool stretch of talent in that 80s era in league history, from whether it be older vets or young talent that came into the league, were all great from top to bottom. And not many eras where you can get that type of competition across the board. You just don't see it. Today a bunch of young guys can come in and put up crazy numbers because they're shooting 55 3-pointers a night. right? So yeah, if you're shooting 83s a game, yeah, you can get 3 guys on the team to put up 20 a night. That's easy. Just stand out behind the 3-point line. You're good to go. I mean, that ain't hard to do. Back then it was, because one guy is the guy, the second guy is the second guy, then that third guy, even the second guy not guaranteed. So you really had to grind it out. And you had to play defense. So to me, like I said, the 80s, to me, I go from 79 to 80 to 90. 79 to 99 would be the stretch. That 20-year stretch right there is where I'm picking the crop from if I need to find greatness, all-time great players. And when I see that stretch, it's obviously Michael Jordan's point in time, and Larry Bird has to be in that discussion, because during that stretch, not all the way through the 90s, but between 79 and 89, a 10-year run of Larry Bird, he's beaten a lot of Hall of Famers out of the postseason, winning MVPs, winning titles, and taking out the best of the best of that era. That's what makes you the all-time great, when you beat the best of the best in your era on a consistent basis, which what Larry Bird and the Boston Celtics did. How the heck can he not be amongst the greatest in that space? Beating the best guys in the best era puts you in the best top 5. I don't want to hear about today's guys being in the top 5. I said this today, and I'll take this all the way to the grave. No player, no current active NBA player, maybe except for LeBron. LeBron is the only player that's currently active that could be in a discussion for a top 5 at any position. Any position. No player today should be ever considered in a top 5 all-time conversation. And that includes LeBron. But of course, we can't have that, because then we'll have nothing to talk about. But I'm taking that to the grave. No player playing right now, no active player that played now or even played in the last decade in the NBA has any path, any rights to a top 5 all-time list. And in the position-wise, LeBron is the only active player that you can make a case for being in the top 5 in any position. So if you say top 5 threes, top 5 small forwards in the league, obviously LeBron will be in that conversation. But Curry, not in the top 5 point guard position, not even in the top 5 position player. Sorry. No player. Nobody. I know people are trying to bring Giannis into is he the best power forward? No. He's not even top 5, may not even be top 10 in any forward position. Like, ridiculous to even suggest it. Oh, he's better than Garnett. No, he's not. Not even close. Not even close. Okay? Not even close. Are you kidding me? Not even amongst the 5. Not even amongst the 5. Jokic is the best center ever. Nope. Not even one of the 10th best centers ever. Nope. Not even amongst the 10th best centers ever. He's played against no great centers. 0 great players at his position he's played against in this era. But you want to tell me he's... Now look, in this era, Jokic is unbelievable. Like, if you like this type of basketball that's being played today, Jokic is phenomenal from an entertainment standpoint, But when I'm talking about pure basketball, competition, eat your heart out, 7-game series, blood in, blood out, Imano. Jokic, I don't want him nowhere near my list. I could find 10 centers over Jokic. Sorry. I take 10. I'll take Ewing. I'll take 90s Ewing over Jokic. Tough 90s, real basketball. Give me David Robinson. Give me Moses Malone. Okay? Give me those guys. Give me Kareem. I'll take 35-year-old Kareem. Heart of heart. Give me Akeem Olajuwon, who might be the greatest, most talented center ever. Right? And Olajuwon gets overlooked the big time. Olajuwon might be the best. Olajuwon has a good argument that he may be the best center. Now, he didn't win enough, unfortunately, but he played in the heart of the heart era. He had success early on. He got to some big games. Obviously, you're going up against Bird and the Celtics. I mean, you're not going to have a chance. But, you ain't going to get it done. Sorry. Look, and I like Yoke. But when I see Yoke as a overweight Vlade Divac. Right? Like everything that Yoke does, Vlade Divac could do and did do to a certain degree. He just wasn't featured. Right? Like go look up Vlade Divac's highlight clips. Jokic does all that, but as the primary guy. Vlade was doing that in the 90s. He was just more athletic. That's all it was. Like he's pretty much a chubby Vlade Divac. Vlade had the same skill sets. He had all those skills. Vlade could shoot outside. He could hit an outside jumper. Vlade could pass. He was one of the best passing bigs during his time. Vlade, was very crafty, and a much younger Vlade was able to drive to the hole and slam it on you. And he had that talent. But they try to pretend that Jokic revolutionized the position. Are you kidding me? Did you not watch? And Vlade was never, ever in his life a top 20 player ever in the league. Like Vlade was like amongst the afterthoughts of all the great bigs. Hey, Vlade could do that stuff that Jokic was doing, but Vlade wasn't among the better players. But he didn't revolutionize shit. Like they act like today, 7-footer dribbling the ball and shooting. Are you kidding me? They were doing that already. Guys could do that. And go watch guys in the off season when they would go hang out at like Rucker Park or play at those little pro-ams. They were doing all that shit. They just understood like in the pro setting in the game, the bigs played down in the post. That's how it was. They played in the paint. That was it. That was their bread and butter. But then they made up 7-footers dribbling and shooting. Like they made it up today. Like they came up with it. Like, oh my God, look what he's doing. What is he doing? He ain't doing nothing special. We've seen that before. Right? Like they act like this is some new shit. Like they just came up with something brand new. Like, yeah, we're gonna teach these guys how to dribble basketball for the first time. Oh man, we already knew. We already seen that before. That ain't new. That ain't new, man. Like, you kidding me? They think that shit is new. They thought it was new. They thought they came up with something new. I'm telling you, man. You give me Larry Bird. Give me Larry Bird. Larry Bird to me, see, and sometimes I argue and I debate whether Bird is either where in the five he's at. But to me, he's definitely in the top five. There's no way you can have a top five list without Larry Bird being in it. I question your mental capacity at that point, especially if you're like over 35 or 40. There's no way you could compel any list. Now, if you're under 25, okay, maybe because you're used to like this sloppy crap that's on today. So you're like, oh yeah, look. But like I said, there's a good argument that Larry Bird is still the best three in league history, and he's better than LeBron all time. There's an argument to be made for that. Like Larry Bird is closer to Michael than LeBron. That's just a fact. Because, and here's another thing. They always talk about, oh, LeBron beat these players and that player. Larry Bird beat the best guys in the league during his early stretches of his career. He was knocking off vets, knocking off players, well-established guys in the league that were already established as great players. Yeah, LeBron beat OKC with Wade and Bosh, but that OKC team was young and they were not even established yet. They weren't even close to what they became individually years later when LeBron and them beat them. They caught them at the very perfect time. Yes, Bird beat young players like, Hakeem and Moses, but he also beat vets like Julius Erving. He beat a lot of great veterans in his playoff runs. But a lot of those younger players were also established already. They were well established. Whereas James Harden wasn't established. He was averaging 13 in a game and shooting like 35%. He was this poor shooter as a sixth man. But they saw the potential. They was like, okay, Houston said, let's sign him. We could give him some money, give him the keys of the franchise and blah, blah, blah. But initially, no. They didn't see he wasn't performing like that. He was inefficient. Westbrook it took him a few years after that to get going. Durant was the only one that kind of was fairly consistently really good, even as a young player. But Bosh, Wade, and LeBron were already established stars in the league, and you knew what you was going to get from them, and they were already franchise players that teamed up. So beating OKC at that point is not really. It looks good on a resume years later because those three guys all became MVPs, but at the time, it's really not a huge W. It's a big feather under your cap, but if you're trying to decide if that's your argument to use on, oh, he beat Durant, Westbrook, and Harden, then we have to dissect that. Oh, he beat them? Let's look at that. We have to be realistic about it. So, well, LeBron's not the first guy that beat great players in the playoffs. And they break down this list because look at all the players LeBron beat in his time. If we made a list of all the players Larry Bird beat, it would be even clearer that Bird is better than LeBron all time. In a short period of time, I guarantee you Larry's list of great players that he beat in the playoffs is a lot more impressive than LeBron's. Yeah, LeBron may have more because obviously LeBron played in in a longer stretch. Matter of fact, what I'm gonna do, and I'll come back on. I might even go live on the TV channel so we can show it. I'm gonna calculate every single all NBA performer that Bird knocked off in the playoffs and the ones that LeBron knocked off. We're going to compare the stats, where they finished in the MVP, if they made all NBA. And I'm only going to usually do this for anyone who probably made at least an all-star appearance at the minimum, and all NBA will be a higher point total. But I'm going to do this because they do this a lot with Michael and LeBron, or even Kobe and LeBron. I'm going to do Larry Bird because Larry Bird's list is pretty damn impressive, right? His list is impressive, especially early on. He has an impressive list of all NBA MVP guys that he took it out in the playoffs. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to calculate that up, and I'm going to put it side by side so people can see it. I'm going to do peak for peak because, it's easy to do. Oh, well, LeBron was 39. He beat such and such. Yeah, he playing with Anthony Davis or these guys, of course. I'm going to do peak for peak. So we'll do all the way up to about 30 years old. That would be the peak. You can't really go past that because Bird stopped. Well, like his peak was over right after 30. But I'm going to do, and then I'm going to compare the two eras. It's pretty obvious that Larry Bird definitely should be, like, if you crunch it down and you break it down point by point, Larry Bird is ahead of LeBron. And like I said, there's a good case. Unfortunately, if Larry would have won like maybe one or two more titles, he probably would have had a strong case for the greatest of all time. Right? Because he lost a couple final, like losing to Philadelphia a few times, losing to Isaiah, and the Pistons also. Obviously losing to the Lakers many times that he did. He could have not easily, but he could have potentially had 6 to 7 titles. Right? And if he would have got that, there would have been no doubt in my mind that he would have been unequivocally the GOAT. He would have been the GOAT. So, I'm going to go through that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to write this down so I don't forget. Do a all NBA list of, let me write this down. List of all NBA players, MVP that Bird eliminated in the playoffs. Bird knocked off in playoffs. And compare it to LeBron. Do a comparison. I'm going to do a full one on that, and I'm probably going to upload it. I might just do a video and then upload it to like Sports Steady TV or Sports Steady Live on one of those channels. So if you're on YouTube, go to Sports Steady Live or Sports Steady TV and subscribe, because that's what I'm probably going to do, the channels. I'm going to do the full breakdown of that, because this is going to be interesting. Because like I said, I think that we're at a point now where Larry Bird is gone from seen as one of the all-time great players to ultimately becoming probably the most underrated player in NBA history. And I don't know why. Because he's very well should be in everybody's 5 all-time list. And there's no starting 5 that you can come up with where Larry Bird does not make it. Think about that. Like, you 5 guys, Larry is in the 5. Like, there's a guarantee guys who are in the 5. Michael, Larry, and probably Magic, right? Magic in many cases. Some people will go different, but I think Magic is probably in everybody's 5 as well, or should be. Now, if you're more of a new school guy, you probably say, "Oh, I want Curry because he could shoot from half court, blah blah blah, all that other stupid shit." But 5 is unequivocally Bird, Magic, and Jordan. At least the top, as those are the 3, and then you can kind of find 2 guys you can argue and debate, mix and match what other 2 would be in the starting 5. But those 3 definitely are in 90 plus percent 90 plus percent of people's lists. Those 3 should be on it. Unless you're just a hater. Right? Like that's the only way I can see it. Like unless you're just a hater of Larry Bird. Because that's what it's coming down to. So I just saw a post. Now, here's the weird part. I don't understand why people are trying to compare women's basketball players to men. It's not. It's a false comparison. So I will read you a comment real quick. This guy just said that Angel Reese ceiling is Ben Wallace, and Caitlin Clark's ceiling is Stephen Curry. Now, ceiling. Now, mind you, for a female basketball player to have a ceiling of a men's player, 2 players, now Ben Wallace, 4 or 5-time defensive player of the year, NBA champion, did it against some of the best in men's basketball. But you said Angel Reese ceiling is Ben Wallace? I don't know if I'm Ben Wallace, I'm offended. Like, think about this. How would Angel Reese ceiling be Ben Wallace? Explain that one to me. Explain that one to me. And how the heck is Caitlin Clark ceiling Stephen Curry? And this is more proof on why this era you'd be crazy. No one in the past generation of the great 80s basketball would say that a WNBA player would be comparable to a player playing in the era of the 80s. So these young people are acknowledging that today's players are a joke, so much of a joke that their ceilings are being compared to current WNBA players. And look, no offense to the WNBA players, but if you watch their games, they're not close to NBA level. So how the heck could their ceilings be an NBA player when they're not, in many cases, better than the best boys' high school team? Like, whoever the best boys' high school player is, that will be the ceiling of most of the WNBA players, of the great ones at least. And there's been some good ones. But Ben Wallace? This guy's in the NBA Hall of Fame. So you're telling me if Angel Reese was at her best, she could be Ben Wallace, meaning that, so pretty much you're saying that she can go into the NBA and do what Ben Wallace did if she played at her capacity at the greatest point. That's basically what you're saying. And I'm trying to figure out, where do you get that logic from? Just not seeing. Would she even be as good as Lisa Leslie? I mean, at least have a comparison to that, like Lisa Leslie, um, Lauren, Jackson, those great bigs, Rebecca Lobo, whoever the case may be. What was the other ones? Um, what's that girl name? The one that played for the Liberty. I forgot her name. Shit, Tina Charles. Like, not. What about any of those women? You said Dennis Rodman. I mean, Dennis Rodman played in the W. He would average 50 rebounds a game and probably be on 20 points a night. Because while, yes, Rodman was not a great finisher or he wasn't a scorer, but he very well could put the ball in the hoop. He was what, 6'8"? He would have been, first of all, he'd be the biggest one on the court in the W. And he wouldn't have to worry about going against men. He would probably shoot 80% from the floor. Right? I mean, he did. I mean, let's face it, he did shoot 52% in his career against men in the NBA, despite being a, not the greatest shooter. So it's not like he would, like Angel Reese would even be as good as him. You get what I'm saying? And to put things in perspective here from the comparison, even if you want to compare yourself to Dennis Rodman, which I hear a lot of people compare her to, well, most of Rodman's rebounds came from the defensive side of the ball. He was averaging, in the peak of Dennis Rodman's, defensive prowess, a lot of his double-digit rebounding was on the defensive side of the ball. It wasn't off. It wasn't from offensive glass, right? I think one year he averaged 12 defensive rebounds a game, 18 altogether. So he was so dominant that he was top 10 in the MVP for a guy who couldn't fucking do nothing. And forget about the fact that the funniest part about it was he shot 31% from three that year. And he's not a three-point shooter. He also shot 53% from the floor that year. So when you tell me about how good Angel Reese is and hit her ceiling, there's no NBA player that her ceiling can be close to. And forget about Angel Reese for a second. Let's go to the Caitlin Clark Stephen Curry comparison, which is also ridiculous in the sense of ceiling ridiculous. Not ridiculous as in, could she be the Curry of the W? Yes. But her ceiling is not Curry per se, because Curry is a different beast. Right? What Curry does in the W, she could not do that in the NBA. She could not do that in the NBA. So her ceiling would not be Curry. Her ceiling probably would be more in the Diana Taurasi range, another comparable female, right? That's the only comparison you can make. You can't compare her to a male player. You can't do that. No. Not at all, you can't. No. Well, but I mean, she's great and all. But to compare her to Curry, it's just a bad rep. It's not good for her. Like I'd rather them say, "Hey, let them build their own ceilings that other girls behind them has to reach." Why compare these women to men? It's really not fair. It's not. It's just ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? It's just ridiculous. But speaking of ridiculous, how about the fact that people really are trying to say that Clark was not was nobody until Angel Reese? But if you go back to Caitlin Clark's college days, right? College days. Let's go back to 2021. 19 years old, Iowa, Caitlin Clark. She, what did she do? She averaged 27, 6, and 7 as a 19-year-old. Okay? That's what she did. Did anybody know who she was? Probably not. Probably not many people. I mean, Iowa is a small school. That is true. But it wasn't like she was chopped liver. Okay? It wasn't like she was chopped liver. And here's the thing: she might be, and is she the greatest player to ever play Iowa? Some people will say there were others that played at Iowa that came to the W that were good, right? Some people say others. Um, you got Tangela Smith, for example, who was pretty solid. Now she was a role player, but overall, it seems like Caitlin Clark is the best player ever to come out of Iowa, right? She might be the best to ever come out. Who's number two on that list? Hmm. So number two is probably Tangela Smith, who also because only two players ever in the W that went to Iowa averaged double digits points per game, and one is Caitlin Clark, and number two is Tangela Smith. Tangela Smith was a second round pick though; she wasn't the first overall pick, and also the last first round pick out of Iowa to play in the W, you had to go back to 2015 with Samantha Logic, who was a 10th overall pick. She didn't last. And then before that, you had to go to Tony Foster, who played from 97 to 99. It was the 8th overall pick out of Iowa in the 97 draft. She played 54 games in the WNBA. So, um, but not many of them. I think Michelle Edwards played 100 games. Simone Edwards played 178 games in the W. But the most games played from a student out of Iowa was Tangela Smith. She played 463 games in her career in the W. And she lasted a long time. Caitlin Clark has played 43 games so far. Now with the men, there was a lot of guys, of course, that played in the W. A lot of guys played in the W. Matt Bullard, some big names that you know about. Fred Brown, he played in the 70s. Ricky Davis, I didn't know Ricky Davis was from Iowa. Ricky Davis, the 98, 21st overall pick. Connie Hawkins was probably one of the better players out of Iowa. He was a career NBA 19-9 for his career. Connie Hawkins. He's a Hall of Famer. So, as a matter of fact, Connie Hawkins, Don Nelson are the Don Nelson? He might be there for a coach. Connie Nelson, Don Nelson are only two Iowa alums, players, I guess, to be in the NBA Hall of Fame, to make the NBA Hall of Fame. So Iowa does have some legacy. They got a little bit of legacy there. Now, let's pick a random college. Let me go with let's go with Beth. Yeah, so anyway. Yeah, I don't like the comparisons with the female and the male basketball players. I think it's kind of stupid to do that. Like, don't compare the two. It doesn't make sense. It's not really. It's not appropriate, in my opinion. Not appropriate at all. Not appropriate at all. All right, so you got no calls. Turn off the phone lines. We're going to take one more break and we'll be back. Actually, there's something I want to react to when I come back. There was something I wanted to go through real quick. Good, interesting question. Might do a little NFL when I come back. Yeah. Okay. All right. So a top NFL draft pick just tied the knot right before OTAs. We'll talk about that and why the internet is buzzing off of that. It should be pretty interesting. We'll come back on Sports Steady Radio. Phone lines are open, 646-797-0095. We'll be back next. back. Sports Steady Radio here. I know I did say about 2 hours ago that we was going to be here for another 45 minutes, but we're still here as we're now entering hour number 3. And so over the weekend, well, I guess it happened before the weekend or on the weekend, the one of the NBA and NFL's top draft picks got married, tied the knot. And Travis Hunter, former Colorado Buffalo and also Jackson State something, got engaged to his got married after getting engaged to his longtime girlfriend Leanna Lanier, and the internet is having a field day, of course, because this has been a story at least for the last since Travis won the Heisman about not trusting Leanne and all the stuff like that. And, I believe she's probably pregnant, if not getting close to it. Looking at some of the photos, video of her, she could be getting ready to get pregnant or is pregnant in the early stages. At least that's what it appears. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but usually this is around the time where NFL players are making their babies. So by the time the season ends, the baby is ready to come out sometime after the playoffs. So if they started working on that at some point, now that they're married, there's a good chance that we might see a baby Travis Hunter or a baby Hunter to some degree at some point by sometime next year. Right? Maybe. So Travis came out and criticized many of the people who tried to criticize his relationship, and he's happy. So I think that's all that matters to a degree. Now, let's see what some of the people are saying about this. Some people are saying, I hope we get a prenup. And some people are saying that Leanna's 33, which I don't think that's true, considering she went to school with him. So that wouldn't make any sense. But the internet is always internet. Some people are saying he's too young to be married. People always it's so weird because you can't win with the internet. I think the one thing Travis and many others are probably gonna understand is that you can never satisfy. You should never, as someone, if you become famous or if you become wealthy or in the spotlight in the media, you have to understand your number one thing is that you will never have 100% of the people on your side on anything, ever, ever, ever. And you have to acknowledge that. And once you understand that, and once you are okay with that and able to tune it out, and you also got to be able to deal with people who also could tune it out. So like if your significant other can't handle that, then that could be bad news for you. You may be somebody who can handle it, but if your significant other can't handle that spotlight and they start running their mouth and responding to every little thing, that is bad for you. So you have to know that. You're not going to be able to please everybody. And you shouldn't try to please everybody. Never try to please everybody, because you'll go crazy doing it. So many of the people in the comments are thinking that she's using this man for money. Right? That's what people are saying. They're like, and I don't know where they get this age thing from. I don't think she's that old. Is she really that old? Oh wow. No, she's 23. Exactly. Not 33. Doesn't make any sense. They went to school together. That's what I don't understand. All right. Yeah, I don't get why people are saying that. Yeah, people are just so dumb. Like they went to school together. They went to high school together. How the hell could she be 30 something and he's saying that makes no sense. But everyone is roasting him saying that, I don't know. Look, I guess you could hope that it works out, but it's his life. He's gonna have to deal with his own consequences. You know, I think a lot of the flair of this is because of people online and any relationship that you get into, whether if you're a celebrity or just a guy that drives trucks and you meet a nice lady in the neighborhood, whether she works at a hospital, she's a nurse, or she's a waiter or a bartender, and there's a good chance that other guys probably had her. She partied before, she was known. You can't help who you fall in love with. Um, Everyone's got a pass, stuff like that, and we don't know the motives of an individual. We don't know what they talk about privately. We don't know what he knows. But if he's dated her since high school, he's she's pretty much been around. I mean, I don't know. I just think that sometimes people and look, they very well may be right, but I don't think it really matters what we think. It's about what he wants. You know? I just think the internet is just a weird place. But you gotta have thick skin. Yeah, these comments are so bad. It's just so bad. All right, let me see what else we got. Oh shit! Wow. That's crazy. Oh, that's what happens. Oh my god. Let me see if I can find him in a MAGA hat. Okay, never mind. Sorry, I got sidetracked. That's wild. Oh shit. But if he's getting deported, he couldn't vote anyway, right? Oh god, that's so fucking funny. The the shit can't write themselves. All right, anyway. Where was I? Yeah. So look, we got anything else to go through? I'm just confused. For a second here. I think we're done here, to be honest. I think we're done. I think we're done. Dun 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 dun. Yeah, I think we're done. All right, guys. No calls came in tonight. Maybe next weekend we'll get some calls. We'll probably try to come on earlier, maybe before the end of the night. I might even try an earlier shift to see if we can get some calls. But anyway, guys, we will see you next week. Look out for Sports Steady TV. I'm going to do that Larry Bird versus LeBron at some point. I'm also going to be follow us on social media at Sports Steady on Instagram, Facebook, X, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads. You know it, I know it. And that's all I got. So, sports page run by a sports fan.